Talk about fraternities.
We talk about all that. Anything.
Cool,
Yeah, I don't
cool,
care.
cool.
It ain't nothing that you can't talk about, or that I don't give, that I got no issue talking about.
Cool. So, how did you decide on Omega? You did. You pledged Omega Psi Phi. Yeah.
Well, I ain't really know about any of that. What happened is there was a friend of mine from DC, a couple friends of mine from DC, and they was talking about fraternities. You know, we was all freshmen, and when I first came to college, Morgan State, there was the first year. It was 1988 fall. I remember I had seen school days prior, but I didn't really understand what that was, what that dynamic was all about in terms of fraternities and life as regards to fraternities and sororities and the controversies that deal with those things. I didn't know. So when I came to Morgan, I saw the first year, I saw the Alphas had a line, the Kappas had a line, I think the Deltas had a line. Wasn't no AKAs online. So it was, I think Deltas, Alphas, Kappas. That's all I really remember. And to see these folks dressed up alike, moving across the yard, robotic, greeting, it blew my mind. I'd never seen nothing like that.
Yeah.
Had no clue what it was about. I just didn't know, other than what I seen in school days. So I'm like, oh shit. I'm in school day, this shit real, I'm in like movie, that's the only thing I could really relate it to, because that had come out, I think, in 87. So I graduated high school in 88. So that is really the only reference that I kind of had to any of this, and I grew up in the DC area, and people was in college, but in my circle we ain't really talk about college, even though we assumed that we were going to college. Some folks were a lot more serious than others. I really wasn't serious. I didn't think about college until my aunt, my mother's sister, had gotten married. I believe it was my senior year too. I believe. If it wasn't my senior year, it was like the end of my junior year. And when she got married, her cousin was married to a guy in Baltimore that was he was in charge of, I think it was the president of student affairs, vice president of student affairs or something like that. His name was Rick Perry. So he came to the wedding, and I knew him from his wife was my aunt's daughter, my great aunt's daughter. So that would be she was my mother's first cousin, and that great aunt's grandson and I were real close. So we would go down to Clinton, Maryland, like on the weekends, with with his mom, with the cousin I'm close to's mom. We would go down to Clinton, Maryland, to her mother's house, which is my great aunt, and the family from Baltimore, which was Rick, Faye, Mark, and Clay. They would come down from Baltimore. So I knew him from those family gatherings. But when my Aunt Gwen got married, Rick came to the wedding, and he asked me. He said, "Man, what are you doing for college?" I didn't know. I was like, "I guess I'm going, but I haven't thought about it."
Right. Yeah.
And that's how really unconcerned with it I was at the time. I was living in the moment, just enjoying life as a teenager. Wasn't thinking about nothing for real.
Yeah.
So he said, "Look, have you considered Morgan State University?" I was like, I knew what it was because my aunt went there, my mother's sister went there, and a lot of my family members had gone there. So I remember hearing about it. But in terms of my own personal application, Morgan State could have been any state for me.
Yeah, right.
So I said, no, but I will. And he said, well, do you have a 3.0 GPA? If you got a 3.0 GPA, and if you can get an 850 SAT score, I can get you a full scholarship. Had a 3.0 GPA. Had not taken the SAT as of yet. But I knew I had 3.0 GPA. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Morgan. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure if I got a 3.0, I can probably get an 850 SAT. So I took the SAT test. Actually took it twice. I got the score. So, I was like, when I got everything, I said, I got it. It came, the rest was history. Filled out my application, got accepted, and came up to Morgan.
Yeah.
Right after graduating high school in 1988, the fall of '88, and when I came, let's fast forward to the fraternities. I seen these cats walking across the yard dressed alike, robotic, like real, just almost like they was like in a trance. And I was watching that, and I'm a voyeur. I watch everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, this, and I could just relate it back to school days. So in my head, I was like, man, I'm in the movie. I'm at Morgan. Like, that shit was like a movie experience to me because it was so close to what I had seen in the movie that I was like, yo, this shit is crazy.
Yeah, right.
And and at that point, at that time, Morgan was real grassroots. Wasn't a lot of there was the engineering building wasn't there. All the dorms was old, all the buildings were old. Only thing that was kind of new was what they probably did just build the engineering building. But I wasn't in the engineering, so it ain't mean nothing to me. And that was up on Hill and further up off of campus. Argonne had just been, I don't even know if they call it Argonne anymore, the apartments on Argonne. Those they had just built them, I believe, the year before. So that was there. But everything was raw, rustic. From the buildings that we took classes in, to the dorms, to the refectory, refectory where folks ate.
Yeah. I mean, it the refact.
The refact. It was raw. I mean, it was just what it was. Wasn't a whole bunch of options in terms of what it come later. You couldn't go in there and get like all these options. Like now I think you can go in and get they got everything
and all that.
Pizza, they got I think they might even have some outside vendors that come and sell stuff there.
I haven't even been there. I ain't been there.
But I know when Shake went, it was really nice. You go in, the options were just endless. It was like almost like a restaurant, smorgasbord or something like that. Like an old country buffet or something like that. When I was there, it wasn't like that. It was just this little brick building behind McKeldin up on the hill. Like you had to go, it was behind McKeldin. I don't even know if the building is still there. You had to kind of walk behind McKeldin, walk down, then walk up a hill. And it was just like up in the back. And it was just same food every day. It was no real choices. But I mean, I liked it. I was like, this I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole gathering of it. Other students in there. It's just me and my little sister, for real. So I didn't come from a big family. In terms of my immediate household. Yeah. But when I would go down to Brandywine, Maryland, to visit my aunts, they had a bigger family, had a lot of cousins. and I enjoyed eating dinner with them. So it kind of reminded me of when I went down there and how we would eat together.
Yeah,
and nice. I just enjoyed the camaraderie. So the whole Morgan experience, for me, kind of was like a safe haven.
Yeah.
Because I was around other folks my age. It seemed like the teachers at the time were almost parent-like. They would they would like kind of help us along. You know, if you was fucking up, they wouldn't dismiss you, but they'd pull you up.
And that's important. Even I'm thinking of I feel like one of my professors they had talked about it, but if you go to like a PWI and being black at a PWI, just like that it's a different experience. So like being able to a lot of people, you know, based on diversity and like you know, different experiences, a lot of people that, you know, might go to a PWI, like if you go to University of Maryland, a lot of those kids, like, you'll just assume that, you know, they have like everything that they need. You know, you going to college and that's just your main focus, like your parents handling, you know, whatever that's going on. You know, you can you can just pretty much focus on school, studying, and that can just be it. You know what I mean? But as far as going to Morgan, I think a lot of people, you know, they have different experiences, different backgrounds. So some people, they might, you know, need they might need a little bit extra time on an assignment because they got work or they got kids that they got to take care of. You know, they got like different, you know, just different situations. And I think like what you was just talking about is definitely important. Just, you know, like going to Morgan and just having that, because, you know, you have black professors or like professors that just understand,
and
you know,
everybody was black at that time.
For real.
Now, I mean, it was some,
like a few.
It might have been a few white folks up there, but it was black. It was all black, and it was nothing to go to class and professors see you and be like, "You feeling alright today?" And you got a headache. They be like, "Well, I remember one lady. I was like, my head's hurting," and she took me out of class and she was like, "I want you to do this, meditate, and take your time." And you just relax today. You know, it was like the professors was somewhat like our parents. That's what I felt. They, you know, they would, you know, they would dig in your ass, but they would do everything that they could to make you successful. You know, they would be on you. Are you doing this? I even had professors ask me if I wanted to go to church and stuff like that. You know, there was one guy, he's dead now. He taught English, and I used to try to take a lot of the night courses, even though I was there. You know, I was there, you know, as a matriculating student, just a visiting student, you know, on campus and all that. I would take the evening courses because a lot of the students who took the evening courses were those older students, those students who had children that had to work, and I found that it was a lot less. It wasn't as taxing because I noticed when we would take courses during the day, a lot, you know, we was all young, and a lot of the professors would be like on our ass. They'd be like, "Man, don't be fucking around. If you do this, you gonna fail. You got to do this." And in the evening, I noticed that they wasn't approaching it that way. It was more liberal because they knew that the folks who were taking the classes had jobs, had children, and other obligations. So I kind of was taking that route, you know, whenever I could, because I noticed that it was a lot less pressure in terms of the professor being on you. And I was nervous, man, because, you know, I just was nervous because I wasn't so sure that I could deal with college. You know, I just wasn't. I would, you know, so I was trying to take my time, and, you know, but I noticed that those evening classes were a lot more easier for me to swallow. So I was taking a class, and the professor's name was Dr. Stout. He's dead now. Taught English, and every Tuesday, Dr. Stout would have spaghetti dinner at his house. He lived right up on Cold Spring, right off of Hill and on Cold Spring, in one of them little houses on the right. So he cooked spaghetti, and he would have ice cream after this every Tuesday. He did.
Yeah.
So he invited students to come over. I go over there every Tuesday to eat with him.
Yeah.
So fast forward to Omega Psi-Phi. I had heard.
But my bad, I don't want to cut you off. But one thing that you had talked about though is community. You know what I mean? Just as far as like the professors, you know, helping you out, and then also, you know, just being able to eat together with, like, you know, in the refact and stuff like that. But you had talked about also your you know, your friends as well. You know, that, like, whether or not like y'all was going to college or not, like it was kind of just assumed. But I wanted to ask, you know, as far as well, I do want to get back to the frat stuff. But when it came to your friends, you know, as far as their interests and stuff like that, like, did y'all, what was the interest, I guess, then, you know what I mean? Like, was it?
Folks was interested.
Yeah.
Some folks was more focused than others, but we were all just enjoying our lives. It didn't seem like we was grinding. What the competitive spirit wasn't there as much as go to class, after class, especially on Thursday Thursday and Friday was like just a chill day. After class, folks would be out in front of like Cummins, playing music. You know, all the fraternities would have their little plots. They'd be sitting, but just people in general just be out listening to music, and you just be having a good time. Thursday, and then Saturday, but a lot of people went home on Saturday. But Thursday and Friday was the day, and the McKeldin Center was real big. It seemed like everybody gathered in McKeldin Center like on Thursdays and Fridays. That was a big deal. Yeah. You know. Yeah.
And I wanted to go, so I guess I can tie it in a little bit. But so when I was coming up, so I lived on Parkside, and right on, so it's on Parkside, it's a dead end block dealer. And so me and my friends, we would just hang out on Dillon. We would play like touch football because it was on the cement, and we would play basketball and stuff like that. But I had like the sense of community as far as like us, because we would link up like pretty much every day after school, and we would just, you know, chill and, you know, play sports and stuff like that. But I guess when I got to, I don't know, it was a certain point. It must have been like early. It was early on, like high school, maybe like the beginning of high school. I was looking for that sense of community, I guess. And just that sense of like organization, or like I don't know, like I guess it was more so like identity, really. But I felt that gangs would bring some sense of I don't know, like community, I guess, or something like that. So it was a point when I was, you know, sort of hang with some people, you know what I mean? But I wanted to like tie that into fraternity, so it's like not necessarily like calling it like gangs, but just as far as like having that community, like a brotherhood, you know what I mean? Because that's what I was looking for, a brotherhood, rather than, you know.
So when we came to Morgan, it was also cliques. Like I still hung out with the folks from DC and like and PG County area, the areas around DC. It seemed like we bought that shit with us. Like we was from DC, you know, anybody from PG County or DC, we kind of hung out together. And then I noticed that the folks from Philly hung out together. Folks from New York and New Jersey hung out together. And then the Baltimoreans, a lot of them, they was just coming to school. You know, they weren't, I don't think they were as prevalent in my mind. You know, they probably was there.
I'm thinking the same way.
And some of them were from Baltimore, but they were kind of like, it was wild. It seemed like the Baltimoreans, they would merge into the different groups. Like you might have, there were a couple folks who hung with us that was from Baltimore, you know, and they just blended with us. But most of us was from DC that hung in, you know, my circle. But I kind of vibe with everybody, but it was still, you still kind of stuck with who you know, because a lot of people knew each other, it seems, before coming there. It wasn't like we was going down to like Tuskegee or something where we, you know, where you might be the only person from, there might only be 2 to 3 people from DC or 15, or something like that. It was a whole rack of motherfuckers from DC and PG. It was a whole rack of folks from Philly. It was a lot of students from Jersey and New York too. You know, so it seemed like it was a microcosm for folks from all over, mostly East Coast though. You know, Morgan just seemed like it was a draw for students from all along the East Coast. Now there was some folks from other places.
Yeah.
But I remember DC, PG County, New Jersey and New York and Philly. Those areas stand out most in my mind in terms of where students were from. And people tended to stay in those geographic cliques. And I mean, sometimes it would get ugly. Like we would be fighting each other, you know, based on, like say if somebody was beefing with somebody from New York and Philly, or Philly or Jersey, that would create kind of like a gang type of scenario where everybody from DC would be going against Philly motherfuckers. I mean, seriously, it was serious like that. That's what I noticed when it did happen. But those incidences, I ain't want to say they was few and far between, because I know I got in a whole bunch of shit, especially with the New York motherfuckers. You know, I just knew it was but it was never my situation. It was always somebody that I was with, and they may have had an issue with someone from one of these other areas, and that was just my cue to get involved. So it was kind of like some gangy shit a little bit.
Yeah.
Fraternities and the sororities. Like I said, when I first got there, I only remember the alphas and the kappas having lines. I just in the fall. But the spring semester, 89 spring, the Qs had a line and the AKAs had a line. But because Morgan only allowed fall pledging, they had to go underground. So this was at a time when pledging was allowed in the open. Because Morgan only allowed fall lines, the Qs had to pledge underground, and so did the AKs. But it was this buzz. It was like this buzz going around campus that, yo, the Qs got a line on, you know, but you couldn't see them. And we talking about at a time where all that was visible. So you hear like this, and I was like, what is? I didn't know the difference between any of them, you know.
Right.
But I'm like, what is the Qs? And folks was like, nah, that's the Qs, serious, man. You know, I'm just listening, and would hear it. And finally, when they went over, a couple of folks that I knew from DC and Maryland, PG, was online, and they was Qs, and I just didn't expect it. I ain't know, you know. And I was like, damn, y'all down with that? And because when I would see the Qs, they was just outrageous. They was wearing dog collars, and I mean, it was like I did notice them, but I didn't know what they were. I just knew that I was like, yo, these niggas just crazy. Yeah. When I was seeing them, and when the line went over in the spring, and I saw that a couple of my buddies or folks that I known from home had pledged that, it made it a lot more intriguing because I didn't relate them to that, you know, like they with that's that wild shit. Yeah. So they had a smoker. So they had a smoker in the spring, and a couple of my friends was like, yo, we going to the Q smoke. And I had a class that evening, and I was like, I'll probably come, but I wasn't planning on coming. Somehow I just, after class, I deviated and went there. And when I went, man, it was nuts. Number one, I ain't have a suit on. I just went in my regular clothes. So they was in my ass when I got up in there. They was just, you know, they was harassing me. They was harassing everybody else. But I ain't had a suit on, and maybe another person didn't have it on either. They was like just fucking with us. It was intense, and I was like, man, I ain't fucking with this shit. I was like, nah, this I ain't got time for this.
Yeah.
But but after leaving, I began to kind of like, I don't know what happened, but I left. When I left, a couple of the guys that I knew from in there, knew before going to the smoker from DC, we started to get a little closer, and we was talking about it, and we was, they was boosting each other up, and boosting me up too. So I just went with it, and I was like, all right. Did the applications, handed them in, and it just seemed like, back then it wasn't like a lot of pre-pledging. Wasn't no pre-pledging like that. Just seemed like, boom. They told, they let us know who was online. We was online.
Yeah.
Wasn't like it is now. Pre-pledging, we ain't know nothing. We was online. We learned everything we knew when we was online, and it was just like go. It was fast, And I'm like, damn, I'm in this shit. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, damn, I'm doing this shit. You know what I mean? Like 1 minute I wasn't, the next minute I'm on somebody's line, and every day for me was like, it was like just one day at a time, because I didn't know what to expect. I was scared, and, I was too scared to drop line. Probably kind of wanted to drop, man, because I was nervous. I was like, anxiety was on 10 the whole time. I'm not going to lie. And all of us were. But the whole time, too, it wasn't just, we ain't never get used to it. It was just like, any moment we could be gone, and that's how it was set up. But we were underground too. We didn't pledge on top of the yard. We pledged underground as well, because we pledged in the spring too. Remember Morgan has fall lines, so we pledged, and we was just pledging, and I was just going with it, like just like I said, one day, almost like walking a tightrope. Each step for me in my mind, each step was just like, all right, I got through that step. I wasn't thinking about the end of the rope. I was like, if I can just get through each moment, and next thing you know, we just, not just next thing, because we was online for quite a while, but when we went over, I still was shell shocked. I actually took a semester off, because I just had to get my mind right, man. It really took a lot out. It took a lot out of everybody, but I just was like, dang, trying to get sleep. It made me appreciate the little things. It did, because they was on our ass, man. It was like, they didn't give a fuck. They would come in your class and snatch you out of, I've been snatched out of class by Qs who wasn't even on campus. They just come up and come in my shit, grab me out that bitch, and I'd be in some bathroom or some place just getting tightened up. But motherfuckers, I ain't even know. I'm just like, cool. They was everywhere, man. Like almost like we was chickens and they was chicken hawks. They just seemed to be everywhere, and you just did not know who was a Q, and you just didn't. They was everywhere. It was intense. I ain't gonna say it was fun, because it wasn't for me. I don't remember nothing being fun about that shit. And we went over. That was cool. But it was just that time period. Everything seemed like it was in the moment. I didn't have any plans. I wasn't thinking about what am I going to do after college. I wasn't thinking about that. I just was like, we in the moment, we living, we young, ain't nothing gonna happen. It's gonna be all right. That's how I was thinking. That's how I was literally thinking the whole time. And I plan stuff out now, but I still operate like that. I think that there is a certain level of freedom and healthiness in thinking like that. because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Nah.
And I live my life like that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I try to plan if I can, but I'm so used to the times that we lived in dictated it. It wasn't, you know, in the 80s, maybe for some people, but for me, it was the adults and it was my friends.
Mm-hmm.
The adults were like, all adults were like our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Or adults was like the cops or something like that. I don't remember a whole bunch of dialogue
Yeah.
with too many adults.
Mm-hmm.
They just was there to keep us on the straight and narrow from what I remember. So we used to, you know, my friends and folks our age, we used to encourage each other. Like, we all had the same issues, most of us, you know. Most of it was rebelling. You know, we was rebellious. We was just trying to figure it out on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We were very rebellious. We was not trying to listen to no parents and no adults.
Yeah.
We just was trying to do what we wanted to do. And I just remember college at Morgan was just a bunch of niggas just trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
We was, you know, most of us had not been around nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and some people did. Some people's parents had went to college or whatever, and some people had gotten like acclimated, but that was not the overall feeling. It was just like a space for us to just roam and just for us to enjoy life. We had created that space.
Yeah.
We had, you know, and a lot of people died. A lot of people just seemed like they disappeared, you know, off the scene. But if you want to say make it, I don't know if that's the right word, but for those of us who kind of made it, we wasn't planning on nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people just fell into their careers. I know, you know, teaching, I didn't plan on teaching. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I was already an artist. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't no planning for that.
Yeah, right.
It's already created now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't walk around saying I was an artist. It wasn't like this external thing. It was an internal thing. I always was drawing, doing something creative. And there were a couple, you know, I had some friends who were like that as well. And that's where my I say even more than the fraternity. That's where that's where I began to separate from the pack.
Mm-hmm. It
wasn't pledging Omega Psi Phi, because after that I still was with my boy. You know, I had my regular niggas. You know, I sometimes hang with the Qs, but I hung with, you know, I had my friends too. You know, and that had more. That was more of a that played more of a precedent on my life than any type of organization.
Yeah.
You know, my friends, you know, was my friends. The Qs was my friends too, but you know, it wasn't never really about Omega Psi Phi for me, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But the art, once I started to, and this happened organically, it wasn't like I went looking for creatives. I start finding these creative folks coming in my path, and we began to be friends. We started living together, and you know, we start talking about Romare Bearden. And I had found out about him accidentally. A friend of mine took me to a Romare Bearden art show. It was like, you want to come to the museum with me? I'm going to see Bearden. And I'm like, sure, I went. But when I went, not expecting to see what I saw these little collages. Looked like torn pieces of paper, magazine cutouts, whatever. And I was like, man, I could do that.
Yeah.
I was like, I could do that. And not in terms of I could do it like it wasn't good, but I could do it because it was accessible. You know, you ain't need no money. You know, I was like, man, that's just torn pieces of paper and some magazines and some pictures.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm gonna do that. You know, because it was cheap, accessible. You know, that was a big thing from back then too.
Yeah.
Back then, that was a big deal. Being able to like, it wasn't like we had a lot of access. You know, if somebody played an instrument, more than likely they played the instrument because it was an instrument maybe around their house. Or they played it as a child and they continued on, maybe got a scholarship in it, or if they did something, it was you did it because you found yourself around that. Wasn't a lot of I want to do this, and like I don't remember too many photography people. I don't remember too many people. I wasn't into photography. I got into that later, but wasn't too many people in photo. That was big. Yeah. If you was in the photo, that was some big shit because not everybody had a camera. Right. And I remember some people had cameras.
That's true.
And that was a big deal seeing somebody, for me it was, seeing somebody with this camera because, not because they was taking pictures, but I just liked the way the camera looked and I thought that was cool. Yeah. Instruments too. I see somebody with an instrument, like, man, he got a horn, he got a guitar or something like that. And I would have wanted those things, but I didn't know how to go about accessing nothing like that. You know, but I knew I was creative. Didn't have sketchbooks. I had pencils and them black and white composition books. That's what I would draw on. No. Just draw. So it wasn't like it is now where, and I guess they were here, the art stores was here, but I just never thought of an art store or museum, except for the one time I went to see the exhibit that was Romare Bearden. And then when I went there, I saw what he was doing. It was collage. I was like, I can do this. Yeah. So I started to get me Elmer's glue and magazines and start cutting stuff. And you know, but I had developed a circle of friends who were artists, but it wasn't art from an external place. We enjoyed creating. You know, we just was making stuff, helping each other out too. You know, like, man, show me how you do that. That's nice, man. Teach me how to do that. Wasn't about biting either. It wasn't about like, wouldn't nobody be like, man, you copying my style. That's, man, nah. We was like, we wasn't thinking about it in terms of like that. It was just like, show me how to draw that, man. Dang, that's slick. Can you show me? Yeah. You know, and we was sharing, and it was a communal thing. Had nothing to do with an occupation. I didn't think you could be an artist. I didn't think that was something that you could do. It was just something that we did, and I had found myself with a group of folks who were creative like that, but it wasn't like a thing that we thought was going to make us rich or, you know,
And so you spoke on a few things that I wanted to get into, and that one of them is like, I guess like masculinity, or like, so I felt like for me, you know, as far as, or I guess as far as like the you know, the black male like image, I guess, when it comes to, you know, exploring different interests, I guess, or like different art forms, or like just even down to drawing. I don't know if if my friends, if they necessarily was like, you know, I guess encouraging of it, like, you know, painting or art or something like that. Like when I was growing up, it felt like it was just like sports.
Yeah, that's
and
what it was.
That was like,
it wasn't nobody encouraging that shit. Matter of fact, one dude asked me if I was gay.
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Some kind of faggot. Fucking, but then come to find out, he was in the art too. When he saw that I was serious, he was like, "Damn, that shit is dope. I draw a little bit." So he went from
like bashing it.
What you want some kind of gay shit? I was like, nah. Then he said, let me see what you doing. Then when he saw it, he was like, yo, this shit is dope. He said, I draw a little bit too, but there was a certain level of ambiguity or the other. Not saying that it was like if you creating, you gay, but it was implied that if you into any of that shit, your masculinity was in question. Like, especially if you was into some fashion design and sewing. Oh, hell no. Yeah. You wasn't going to be doing that. I was scared to do, Now I make quilts now, but back then I couldn't. I just wouldn't be able to. I ain't had a wherewithal to say, man, let me explore these textiles, or let me, because I probably should have been more into that.
Where does that come from, as far as the that, like, why can't black men explore just different art forms? Like, what is that, like, slave? Is that something that we can go back to, like, history?
It wasn't there was no space for that. It was no space for that at the time, like it is now. There was no. And
that's what I was going to say. Now, like, with social media and everything, like that, it seems like you can, like,
you can navigate, you can find your niche. Nah, back then, if you was into any type of alternative lifestyle as regards to sexuality, maybe. I know from DC.
I didn't mean sexuality. I meant, like, more so, like, art forms and stuff.
No, I'm saying, I'm even saying sexuality, because it was all. It seemed like
it was kind of like together.
All the gays was into the cool shit, like the music.
I get what you're saying.
The music, the fashion. It seemed like that was reserved for them. And even though I was interested in it, I was scared that I would be aligned or affiliated with being gay. That was serious, and just because at the time, though, it was an extremely hyper-masculine time. Now, there were folks who were gay, but they were not outwardly gay that I know of.
And that's crazy that
it wasn't like that. You couldn't be like that.
You just said the fear of, even the perception of,
even if you were a peaceful person, it wasn't a time for that. It was very aggressive.
And
fighting was. I mean, it was like, man, because I'm peaceful, I'm chill.
I'm
but
the same way.
I was always on the defense, because you couldn't be chumped, or you couldn't let nobody disrespect you. And there was a phobia in a lot of our minds that we got to be ready, because can't nobody chump you in public. Now if you by yourself, I would walk sometimes at night, to parties and stuff around Morgan or the people's houses. I used to be fearful at night, because I was like, if somebody do something to me, I'm by myself. But when I was around people, it was like this false sense of
like a security,
false sense of bravery came up, because
I know exactly what you're
spotlight.
But
naturally, I got certain phobias. I do. And when I would walk at night, I would try to make sure I was unseen, because I didn't want nobody to jump out. Still young. I was like 19, 18, out on my own, and the cities, it was dangerous. Everywhere was dangerous. Especially if you didn't know. Cities were very dangerous. I remember the first time I went to New York, which was on my own, which was like 89, maybe 89, Thanksgiving of 89. No, it was the summer of 89. I went up to visit a girl, and man, I was so scared, man, because I just thought somebody was going to do something to me. Even walking the campus in Baltimore, somebody might, I'm by myself. I don't want nobody to do nothing to me. So I felt vulnerable, real vulnerable, which I should have, because I didn't know anything. I was green. But when I was around familiar folks, you had to put on like that front as being tough and being able to hold your own, even if you couldn't. And I couldn't. I didn't know anything about anything, but I had put that mask on, and that was stressful, even with the Q stuff, man.
And that's what I wanted to go back
I was
to
like,
that.
that's why I kind of, honestly, if I'm being honest, I kind of not shied away, but kind of limited my activities after a while, with the cues because there was always something jumping off with them. And I just was like, man, I just don't feel like getting in no shit.
Yeah.
I just, I ain't really built like that. I take care of myself, but I'm not overwhelmingly aggressive. And I don't really want no parts of none of that. That's not who I am. I'm really chill and I want to create. That's really my mindset was what I didn't, what was kind of like, what would be kind of ridicule behavior. I wanted to be into creative stuff. But the spaces that I found myself in, they didn't align with that. They didn't lend themselves to that. So I kind of ended up being outside of myself just to get along with those people or those situations that I found myself around, because I thought that I would be identified as something that was somewhat of non-desirable.
Yeah.
Which was a homosexual or something like that. Really, I was homophobic, but from a different. I didn't have anything against anybody because I didn't know what that was. Really, honestly, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know nothing about none of that. But based on the conversations, based on the threats, I just did not want to be on the opposite side of what was quote unquote good. And being good, honestly, in the peer culture that I found myself in was being fucked up. Like being able to deal out shit, or being able to deal with shit, being able to take shit, being able to be a top dog type person. That was considered desirable in the group. And it was a falsehood, And I was like, I could have got consumed by that shit several times, man. But just trying to get along, trying to front, trying to maintain my space. And that went on for years. When I tell you years, but when I start linking up with other artists, that's when my anxieties began to kind of simmer down. And I found
comfortable.
I found myself. I found myself in a comfortable space. But the sad thing is, and I got to check myself on this even now, I had developed a level of aggression that I also bought into this realm of creatives. So I still was like, I don't take no shit. And I was bringing that over still. Because I still was uncomfortable with that. Because I had been mindful that the artist friends that I had, I was cool with, but I had not been around a whole bunch of artists. So when having those friends open themselves up into like a bigger pool of artists, I had to reestablish myself again. Like I never been around these type of people. I'm around folks who are creative, but now I was finding myself more often than not around huge groups of creatives, and that was a whole nother type of coming to terms with, because I'd never been around that before. I'd never been around a whole bunch of folks who were confidently and undeniably these so-called artists. So it went from being around these hyper aggressive folks to now these hyper creative folks. And I was neither or. I just like to make things. But I didn't have a look. I didn't have a style. I couldn't figure it out. It was like when at one moment I'm trying to figure out, when I just figure out how to be cool amongst what I thought was cool, just figuring that out. Now I'm into this art thing, and these folks is cool on a different level, and I'm trying to figure that out. And that's where my aggression kind of came, where I was like, at least with them, I can hold my own.
Yeah, and
you know, ain't nobody gonna fuck me up, and I probably end up fucking one of them up for coming out of their mouth wrong. So I was still, you know, I still was in no man's land for a long time.
I found that I found that sense of, I guess, comfort when I started hanging with like Sheck and Aaron and all of them, like because we were, you know, still like just, we had like a somewhat of, you know, like a city you know, Baltimore city experience, and like just as far as like certain like perspectives, we had similar perspectives, but we did give each other a ground where we could explore just like different styles, like you know, like just being creative.
Yeah, and I like that with y'all. You know, see, I had never had that. You know, and I used to observe you guys when y'all were little, and I would see, you know, a healthy type of engagement. Yeah. But I didn't have that, man. You know, and I didn't get that until later. I didn't get that until much later, where, you know, I was with folk, a core group of folk where we could really be ourselves. We start talking to each other about things. It was pure, you know. I went through life without that until I got a little older, and once I did get it, you know, I really appreciate it, you know. But I had to go through certain, you know, just a whole bunch of, almost a roundabout way to come full circle to the thing that I always was, you know, and always wanted, but it wasn't there for me. You know, the 80s didn't provide a lot of that for me based on the space that I grew up in. Now, it was there, though. It was there because this is a time where house music was forming. You had a lot of young jazz musicians who were coming up with a whole new way of approaching jazz music. You know, you had artists like Jean-Michel Basquiat was still alive when I was in high school. He didn't die till 87. Yeah. Wow. So they were doing that thing in New York. Folks were doing things, but it was just not the circle that I found myself in. So I was really a fish out of water. I was in this space that was hyper aggressive, very dangerous, and it's only by the grace of God that I'm still alive, because I am not those things. But I had to kind of acquiesce in a way that could kind of camouflage me. So I may have to get down, but every time I did something that was in line with the approval of the crowd that I was around, it was like I was holding my breath, because I knew that I could only go so deep into this before I was going to be exposed. And thank God that it didn't get to that. But when it came to the artwork, after really understanding and finding a space where I could be viable and could hold my own, I recognized that this ain't even about what these hyper creatives is about. You know, a lot of these folks are external artists. You know, they've been around it, so they know the nuances. They know the buzzwords. They know how to play the role. And for me, I think it was a blessing, because I had come to the understanding that this is something I really like doing. This is something that I really enjoy doing, and I had met some folks that generally enjoy doing it as well. So for a brief moment in time, I'm gonna say between, and this is in Baltimore, between 92 and 99, Baltimore was a space to be a creative. Oh, it was magical. I mean, there were, you know, because there were so many folks who were doing things, and they were really authentic. You know, they were really, there was an authenticity in what they were doing, because they didn't know what they were doing. None of us knew what we were doing. We was just doing something. Creative. We were experimenting, and we were bouncing ideas off of each other.
That's nice to just have, because if you don't have training, I guess, like, it's good to just be able to, you know, come in, and now you're exploring different ways, because you don't even know, you know, you don't have a structure.
And then I'm meeting musicians who are like this. I'm meeting all kind of people around this time, and everybody that I seemed to fall in sync with was really doing something that I could take something away from.
Yeah.
And and then I remember when the Paradox opened. I remember that. That was around 92. That was a whole different, that blew my mind, man, because this was a space, the music that they were playing was off the meters. The space was like none other I'd ever been into.
I didn't know the Docks was that old.
It opened. On Saturdays we would go, and Morgan had a radio station that fed right into it. On WEAA, Saturday nights you had, I think they called it the Underground Experience. It was like house music. And that music would just lead you into the Docks. You just listen to it. And then folks be like getting in the car. And everybody was going to this thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't no gender specific. Everybody was hitting that Paradox. And it was for the music.
Yeah.
And then there were artists who came out of that scene, man, and it was authentic. People was doing stuff and really doing some good stuff at that time, and folks were embracing one another because there was no real money. There was no real external force that was picking people off saying, look, man, we want you because we like your art, we like your music. Everything was just happening. And it was just, you could do it. And for a brief moment of time, I say maybe 7 years, Baltimore was a special place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think happened? I guess when did we lose that?
I don't know if it got lost.
Or if it got lost. Yeah.
I don't know if it got lost. I think we got older.
Yeah.
And once we began to evolve, some folks became these things, folks start becoming stuff that we had never seen before,
Right.
I got a friend named Derek Adams. He one of the most renowned artists in the world.
Yeah.
And Derek was with my roommate. I met Derek here. We were close. Derek is getting it, man. He's the man in terms of art. But we couldn't see that coming. Who else is the guy that was CEO for Def Jam was Kevin Lyles. He's from Baltimore.
I know that name. Yeah.
He's from like the Woodlawn area.
Okay.
Those type of guys. Wayne Davis, who's a big promoter in Baltimore. He had the Paradox, but it wasn't about fame. These folks is really known. It wasn't about being known. It was about just enjoying things.
Yeah.
So some folks had been elevated in their artistry to a point where that became a distraction, because now folks are like, if he can do it, I can do it. Almost how people are with Basquiat. Like, look at what Basquiat did and got paid for. I'm going to do me some of that. It wasn't like that. Yeah. People were doing things generally because they wanted to do things. And I believe Basquiat and all those guys were like that too, but when they got picked up, and became like super wealthy, and the money that had never been an issue before started to find them, other people began to get confused. Just imagine, you got your buddies, and one of you guys becomes an overnight success and becomes a millionaire, and it's taken away. Y'all are like, why him? What was he? It was a lot of that. Like, what's so special about that? What's so special? And it became a distraction.
Yeah.
And I believe it was a shock. I ain't gonna say envy, because I don't think folks were envious. Folks were just shocked because certain things were befalling us that were taking some people into realms that we could never see possible. We just didn't see a person becoming a millionaire through the music industry or through artistry or something like that. I didn't see it. It seemed like we was just doing things, and some folks just became superstars. And that happened around the 2000s. It happened between 95 and the 2000s. A lot of people became known. They did.
Yeah.
And it shifted from being a musician, being an artist, to being a successful artist or successful musician. And I think that's where we at now, where the focus is on money and commerce.
Right.
And there was a time where that wasn't
just
even
being a creative.
That wasn't even an
just
issue.
Doing the what you do.
Yeah.
Man. Because even now, what you were talking about, like I don't know if people are even as what's the word, explorative, I guess, when it comes to different art forms in Baltimore. At least it doesn't seem that way, as far as like just being open to.
I don't think
different.
I think now in the forefront is always the possibility of getting wealthy.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about. I think like social media, I'm not on it anymore. I was, but I liked it for the platform itself. Like Facebook, when I was exposed to it, I was like, wow, here you have this digital space where you can write, you can put drawings, paintings, still art up, you can make films, you can do all this within this one space, and it can be a soundboard. You can get other people's feedback, you can share, you can have these dialogues. And it's it depends on how you work it, it can be really beautiful. But that's overarched by how successful you can be on Instagram, how successful Facebook and Instagram, those things are magnificent to me in terms of aesthetics. But the purpose of propelling propelling people into the next stratosphere as it regards finance and status, as regards to being wealthy or whatever, that overarches the beauty and the possibility that could be had on these things. It's always money.
Yeah.
I've yet to be in a dialogue on any of these social medias where money doesn't come up. Always money. What are you doing to market? I got this opportunity where you can put your artwork and you might be able to. We didn't have those conversations back then. Those conversations weren't part of the dialogue. Now, we did do things. I remember painting shirts and things of that nature that we were selling, but it wasn't about commerce. We wasn't thinking that we was going to be rich.
Yeah.
It was like, man, let's paint these t-shirts, man. Let's sell them. And then you sell them, you see somebody with your joint on. You're like, man, that's my shit.
Yeah. And less of, like, I guess with social media, you have to get recognition from thousands of people now. You know what I mean?
I don't like all that. That's the difference now. I think now it's all about developing your hustle and your angle so that people see what you're doing. Whereas before it was, I'm just doing it. I like it. I go to work, come home, and create. And I still try to maintain that mindset. So when I talk to folk, young folk, old folk, anybody, and people, if they assume that I'm somewhat financially successful in my art, which it's just not about that for me. If I sell a piece of artwork, that's good, that's a blessing, but it ain't never been about that for me. I still very much enjoy the artwork. I work, I teach school, that's how I make my money. But teaching school is also an extension of my art too. I teach art, I teach what I do. And when I go in to teach, I'm not going in as business usual. I'm going in like how we talking right now.
Yeah.
I try to dialogue with the students like that. We come in.
And I wanted to get to that too, teaching.
Man, we come in. I don't care what I'm teaching. We come in.
You're not teaching at an alternative school.
I was.
You was. Okay.
I'm teaching elementary now.
Okay.
But it don't matter. With the alternative, whatever. Folks come into my class. I like it to be a space where you can get the most out of it. All the other stuff is secondary, and I don't even give a fuck about none of that. I don't care about grades. I don't care about that's not art to me. Art is equivalent to recess.
Mm-hmm.
Art should be fun. It should be exploratory. It should open all of our minds. It should be give and take. So I try to set up a space where everybody can come in and relax enough to gather something so that they can feel like they're beyond time.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond time is like being at recess. I don't know if y'all had recess as kids.
Yep.
That was a big thing for me and my friends in
Mm-hmm.
elementary and junior high school, which we all call middle school.
Yeah.
At recess, man,
Yeah.
we go out and we knew we had 45 minutes, but we get lost in it
Mm-hmm.
to the point where 45 minutes was just
Yeah.
done. So when
Yeah.
you come to my class, I want it to be like that. I want us to get
Yeah.
into the zone. And once the bell rings, when the students are like, "Damn, Mr. McKissic, I don't want to leave."
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
And then I say, just, you got to leave, but hold on to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when you leave school, if you want to come after school and do some work. But take that moment with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we used to do. I used to take recess home with me.
Mm-hmm.
Man, when I if I couldn't finish what we were doing at recess, I'd be in my house. I'd be in my room kind of acting it out with myself, getting ready for recess tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be doing recess at home, like where I never really focused on homework. I approached recess like a class, and I would be at home perfecting what I was doing at recess for the next day, because that mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
So my class, I want it to be like that.
Yeah.
If I can get an energy going where the kids get so caught up that the time just flies,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the bell they're like, "I don't want to go."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, you gotta go, but the good thing is you won't be back tomorrow."
Mm-hmm.
Or with elementary, you'll be back next week.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want you to do is take some of the things that we learned today and keep doing them.
Mm-hmm.
Keep working on them any way you want. There's no rules. You know what we did. We talked about, I don't got to give you an assignment. When it's something you love, you ain't got to give a person too much.
Yeah.
Like, look, just take it. And when somebody tells you, good job, take what we learned, because you're already doing it, and just play with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not do this, and that's your assignment. Bring it back. My thing is, take what you learned, or take what you want from it. Play with that. Bring that back next week,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to pick up there.
Yeah.
And don't worry about nothing else outside of yourself. Internalize the part of it that you got that means something to you, and I want you to think about that. If you ain't got no materials at home, don't worry about it. Think about it. Act it out. Write it down. Draw it on a piece of notebook paper, whatever. I don't care how you need to do it, but massage it to the point so that when you come back, you ready to pick up, man, and we can begin to kind of like cross-pollinate. So now your positive energy going to affect that person. That
Mm-hmm.
person's going to see that, and we're going to create a cipher in here where everybody is swept away by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I remember about Baltimore and the group of friends that I had established around 92 up until 2000. It was like that, man. And it was unconscious. And the musicians, they even had it more. I had a lot of friends who went to the Baltimore School for the Arts, but I knew them after. I knew them around 92 up till 2000. I still know quite a few of them. But I remember there was a place on Rogers Avenue and Liberty, right off of Liberty Road on Rogers. It was a spot called the Sportsman's Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like in a little crack-infested street. It was real gully.
Yeah.
But on Monday nights at the Sportsman's Lounge, they had open jazz sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Open jam sessions for any jazz musicians. So you had adults coming in there. In Baltimore had a whole bunch of jazz musicians back then. Mickey Ward, Andy Ennis, Ethel Ennis, Arnold Sterling. You had a whole bunch of old school jazz guys, but you had a whole bunch of young folk too. A lot of them had stayed in the area. A lot of them were working and playing music. Some of them had went up to Berkeley. You know, some of them went away. But around, say, Thanksgiving was a good time to go. Like Thanksgiving, say you went on like maybe the Monday or Christmas break.
Yeah.
Christmas time. When folks had come home from school, man, they would all be there. You would just have all types of musicians in there for that jazz session, and they had it. And then you had other little areas around the city where they, you know, young musicians, old musicians, whoever, you're a musician, you would come and play jazz. And I used to see that, man, and marvel. I would go, and I was like, man, I wish, in my head, I wish I had just, I'd be like, it's too late, but I wish I had gotten some of this when I was younger. But 3 years ago, man, I just started picking up the guitar and harmonicas and stuff like that. I'm in the process of learning the flute.
Yeah.
So I've recaptured that. You know, not recaptured. I've captured that in my later ages because I was too scared then. I just thought that that's something that you would have had to been in, would have had to have been in to perfect it, and it was only for those folks. But nah. Now I realize whatever you want to do, it don't matter. Yeah. Just do it.
And you had mentioned the guitar and the jazz music. I saw you have what's it, Ritual and Recall? Is that like a what's that you were working on?
That's my film. That's my film. Yeah. But it's an ongoing film. It's film. It's everything. It's writing, film, artwork. It's whatever I do, you know, because it's called Ritual and Recall because it's the everyday ritual. Do it every day. And then the recall is remember what you're doing. Tie into something else. Try to find somebody. Like I always try to find somebody who I can link. They could be alive or dead that I can link my purpose to. So my purpose might just be playing the music or making these drawings or paintings or whatever I'm doing. So I find somebody who kind of did what I did. They don't have to be famous, and it's better if they're not famous because that takes the pressure off. Because I don't really like vibing for money. You know, I don't really like the whole commerce and stuff. I like the doing of stuff. And when you take the money out of the equation, for me that takes the pressure off. Yeah, you know, because you can focus on having fun. You know, and that's what I'm about.
Yeah, pressure with money. So I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but I noticed for me, I'm also I fall victim to that. When with certain paintings that I do, I'm like I don't explore as much. Like I've been looking at art that's been selling. Yeah. And then I'll try to sort of mimic what they're doing, but not like, you know, completely like.
Yeah, it's hard not to get caught up in that.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, back in the day, and some of these folks are very well off now. We would have art shows in our apartments. We would go anywhere to display our artwork. I remember one time Coppin was having something. They were having some type of event, some type of music, jazz or whatever. And something told me, I don't know why I figured I could do it, but something said, and I didn't know what Coppin was. I don't even know how I found out about it. But I found out Coppin was having this jazz event. So something told me, go there, ask them if you could display your artwork outside. I did. They said yes. So I went there, and I was outside in the auditorium with my paintings, all my stuff on the floor. But I was probably the happiest that I've ever been in dealing with my artwork then, because I wasn't just doing it at Coppin. I would do it anywhere someone had a poetry reading, anything going on. I would just try to get into the lobby and just lay my work out. Wasn't no easel. I didn't know what an easel was. Just had to work on the floor. And people would come by. I remember the newscaster, what's his name? He a black guy, kind of got curly hair, kind of got a high top fade. He might, what is his name? Well, he was on one of the news stations,
Mm-hmm.
and he was at the event, and he asked me, he said, man, how much for that? I didn't know what to tell him. I was like, what do you mean? I don't know how much for what? How much?
Yeah.
You tell me. And he bought the piece from me, man. He said, you know, he said, how's something like, might have been like $200.
Mm-hmm.
But that was big for me, man, you know,
Yeah.
like $200. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. It was just the fact that this guy, who was somebody in my eyes, had had enough regard for what I was doing to give me something.
Yeah.
And man, when I tell you that to me, man, that was the most happiest I was when I'd be at Morgan on the campus, painting shirts, doing paintings, just, you know, have them laying out, and somebody might come by and just say, man, you selling that? And I'd be like, yeah, I can. Even though I'm not, I'm just doing it. I'm just doing something. It was like, and then I took it back to folks like, man, you know, motherfuckers is buying this shit.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we clearing out our apartments on Fridays.
Yeah.
Somebody bring food. Somebody bring liquor. Bring bring our artwork. Had a little record player. Bring the records, and because I ain't had no CDs. They had CDs. I didn't have CDs. I've always had albums and tapes. Got a tape player, the boom box, tape player, and we got a record player. Putting records and tapes on. And we having art exhibits, slash parties, you know, broads is coming through, folks coming through, and they became these meetings, and it expanded. Then next thing you know, somebody else is like, look, I'm having an art joint at my house. Could you bring some work? And then people weren't even artists. They start saying, I'm gonna do artwork too. We gonna have. It became this happening, man. It was serious.
Yeah.
And it lasted for a good 5 years, where we were having these events that centered around art, but it was more about community. It was more about us just getting together, and the artwork was just the variable that brought us there. It could have been cooking. It could have been anything. And that's what I think. I know everybody can't do it, but if you can do it, you know, your mindset can let you do that. Let you focus on just the work and doing good work and enjoying it and sharing with other people who are doing good work. I think everything else will take care of itself. You know, but that's harder if you got somebody that's been making money off of this stuff. How can you tell them that? But folks who haven't, I tell them, man, just get a gig, get a job that you can stand. You know, get a job that you can stand. Do that during the day, and then when you're not doing that, focus on your work.
Yeah, and my bad. You said what was your cousin's name that did the video?
Sophie. Yeah.
Sophie. Yeah. So I remember it was a part where y'all talked about that a little bit, just as far as like having, instead of, you know, being like a starving artist, like, you know, find something where you can have that structure in order to you know, be able to be able to get into the right mindset to create. And it's funny, I was talking to my sister about it on one of my other, I did another video with my sister, but she was talking about Manslow's, I think Manslow's law or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's about, like, I don't know how many structures it is, but it's pretty much like your basic needs in order to then focus on growth and you know, I guess like not enlightenment, but like, you know, that the other aspect of things. Like
you got to take care of yourself so that you can relax enough to be creative,
to do those things. Yeah,
like the theory of self-preservation. And then after you got that, then you can, all the other things will flow. But if you can't have your basic, and I understand people go through situations where they got to struggle or whatever, that's just part of life, but still struggle. If you got to work at McDonald's, if you got to do whatever, do that, and then keep that little corner of time for whatever you do creative, and you'll appreciate it more. I wish he died a couple years ago. If he was alive, man, I would tell you to interview him. Ernest Cromer was an artist from Baltimore. He was a pastry chef. He was an artist. and he was just all around cool guy. But he worked with crayons. And I went to a friend of mine. She took me to his house to meet him. He was an older fella, but you couldn't tell he was old, man. He had the spirit of like a lion. First time I went to his house, come into the apartment, and he lived right off of Cathedral Street. Like when you coming past the library, you come down, and then you come across, I think it's Saratoga, I'm not sure. I think Saratoga, and then on the left there's this huge high rise, kind of down from Lexington Mark. He lived in there. He lived at the top. So we took the elevator up to his floor. As soon as we got off the elevator, we could hear the music playing. When he opened the door, man, he was just grooving. His wife was in there, he was in there. Yeah. And he was sitting down. He had an easel and some paper. I mean, he was drawing. He had a bucket of crayons. Yeah. And he was doing this drawing with crayons. That shit looked like a paint. It was a painting, but he had used crayons to recreate. And I was like, dude, you did this with all crayons? Wow. He was like, hell yeah. This is what I work with. And we remained friends forever, But he was the epitome. He was a French pastry chef. And he had dropped out of high school. He went to Douglas in like the 40s or the 50s. Dropped out, and he just went on an adventure. His life was an adventure. Yeah. It was seriously. He had some type of disability, diabetes or something. He had to get his leg amputated. He told the doctors, man, I want to film it. He was a photographer too. He was like, I want to film when y'all do this. Wow. He was just, everything to him was an adventure, was an opportunity for creative. He had the right spirit, man. Yeah, that's where definitely. I derived that from, man. No one can tell you where to place value. No one. No one. But they can't. Everything is valuable. Everything is viable. No one's better than anyone else. If you wanna just draw in a little, if you only got this much space and you got you can only afford composition paper or typing paper. Those works, if you put the energy in them, they worth just as much as anything else. And that's where I think that was Basquiat's strength. Even if he hadn't have gotten famous, he would have still did what he did. We just wouldn't know who he was, but he was he was bent on doing that type of stuff. Yeah. And there are people like that. Even now, it's not as much, or maybe it is, but we don't see them because they're not on social media, because they too busy doing what they do. But I say, man, just have fun. Yeah. And I believe social media can be fun too. It's a beautiful platform, but I don't think it all has to be all about selling and commerce. Yeah. I think people can set up little groups where we talking like this, where you vibing like this on there with people. That's a good point. And folks are getting just some enrichment. And if you do make money off of it, that's beautiful too. That's just money so you can do more of what you're doing. But I don't think folks looking at how I can become a success as something is the right answer. Because you're putting that pressure on yourself. If you don't become a success at it, or whatever the world says is success, what you gonna stop doing it? And some people will. Yeah. Some people will give up, or some people get caught up in a rut because their mind has been pitted in the norms of society. And you got artists like that, folks who swear they're creatives, but they're pitted in. They'll say things like, I used to do this before I had kids, before this nah, man, ain't never no excuse. Bring your kids along with you. Yeah. That's what I used to do with Shake and Reel. Yeah. We ain't never stopped. This shit ain't never stopped, Right. I mean, at my lowest points, man, I always been creating. Even with my kids, man, they just, man, be like, y'all gotta come with me. We gonna do this, or y'all gonna see it done. So there's never an excuse not to be that creative. Those people are like, man, I used to, but then I had kids and all these responsibilities. You ain't want to do it. That's you stop because you wanted to stop. There's always a way. Yeah. Now you might have to pay more. You might have to work more. If you got 12 kids, You don't have to stop being creative. You just might have to not sleep.
Yeah.
You just get 2 jobs or 3 jobs, and then when you're not working, just don't go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. You just gotta want it.
Yeah.
You gotta want, and not want it in the way of necessity, where you have to want to.
Right. I got you.
Some people say want it. Well, you have to take care of your family. You have to want. Yeah, you're gonna do that, but what is it you really want? That's non-negotiable. You got to do what you have to do, but the thing that you really want, that thing that's burning in the back of your brain, that you don't talk to people about, but you're like, man, it sounds far-fetched because nobody's doing it. That's the thing that you need to do, and that's the thing that it's going to set you free, regardless of how it does. But that's yours, and you got to figure out how do I bring that to the focus. And a lot of people won't do it because they're like, I can't afford it. There's no time. No, there's always time, and there's always a way. Sell something, if this what you want, But some people be like, I can't sell this. Go without a car, catch the bus, take the car money and buy whatever, and you just will get a piece of car. Just you figure out what you need to do what you want and make it work. And also you have to have relationships that'll help with that, and that's the hard thing. And you got to be willing to establish relationships outside of the norm. And you got to be willing to leave things that are toxic too. If something is not working for you, you can always leave it. Then leaving it doesn't mean abandoning the responsibility. It means you just say, look, this is not working for me. I got to figure out how to deal with you or whatever, if you have to deal with them, but I got to do this. And you need those relationships to establish, which will help you do those type of things, because people got the same type of far-fetchedness in their mind. And if you take the step, somebody's always watching. They're going to take the step, and next thing you got a duo. Then somebody else will see you got a trio. Next thing you know, you got 12 motherfuckers doing some shit that ain't nobody fathom, because only those 12, were thinking about that in different areas. But now they're together, and now they're working it out. And they may be making money, they may not be making money, but their lives are heightened to the point that you got more than 2 people who agree with what you're doing, and you rolling. I mean, sometimes that's the best you can hope for, and sometimes that's the best it's going to get, because a lot of times once it gets beyond that, once it gets to the point where you think people will be satisfied, they're like, I don't even like it anymore, because I'm in a realm, and that realm has certain things in it that I don't really agree with, but the money's there, so, or whatever, I deal with it. But they'll be like, man, I wish it was like it was. And it could always be like it is. But if you choose to go for that money, you choose to go for that bait or whatever it is, and that's really not where your heart is at, you chose that. We got to be honest with ourselves. We got to say, look, do I really need notoriety, or do I want to just do what it is that I want to do? And that's a viable decision. That takes courage to say, I'm gonna do this on my own terms, because my terms are what matters as regards to what's important to me.
Right.
You do it the way you want to do it. Now, you don't compromise on the things you want to do. Unless you choose to compromise. Now, you got to compromise to do what you want to do, though. So there's a difference.
That's true.
Compromising on what you want is, when you don't have to, is different than saying, look, I may have to do X, Y, and Z so that I can do what I want. Do that, as opposed to say, well, this is what I want, but if I go work for such and such and such and such, I'll be doing what I want, but I'll have to do what they tell me to do. You made that choice, and then when you get into something, you realize, that ain't what I wanted. I don't even like what I'm doing no more, because I done put myself in this position where I'm uncomfortable, all these anxieties around me, or I got to make this deadline, when you may not have had to do that. You might have been more happier going without the luxury or whatever it is you think you might need, because other people say that you need it or they need it. And I say, always be honest with yourself. You can lie to everybody else. It don't matter. But don't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, just don't. You know, and that's, I mean, shit. Would you want to keep going, or you think we good, Tim?
I mean,
it's on you. It's on you.
Okay.
You got some more questions?
Okay.
I just hope that I'm staying on task.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are.
Yeah.
Good. We good. I did want to. So I had came across. Wait, you didn't want to take like a break or anything like that? You got grab it.
I don't need no break.
Okay, cool. I had came across a picture that you took, but the caption really stood out to me, and it was I think Baltimore eats its young or something like that.
What was the photo? I think that was a series I did.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I ain't on Facebook.
I think this the joint right there.
Oh, that's my old student. Yeah, that's one of my students. I hope he's still alive.
I'm gonna have to figure out how to add this into.
He was wild as fuck. But
yeah. And it was that at the alternative?
Yeah, that was at Francis and Wood, and we were out. You know, I used to take the kids out. First we had cameras. I got some funding to get cameras for my kids, and we would go all around Sandtown, South Baltimore, and just photograph, take pictures, and sometimes they would put themselves in the pictures. You know, it was whatever. You know, if it was no pictures to take, they might be like, "Yo, take me a picture. Take a picture of me going up in this vape." And I was like, "Yeah, y'all do that. That's cool." But this kid, what was his? Damn, I can't remember his name, but I remember him. He was a good kid, man. Real good kid, but he was just struggling with the stuff we talk about. You know, trying to stay alive. He really had no father. I met his mother. She had some type of issue, where she had to have some type of bag. I don't know if she had dialysis or what, but she was sickly. He didn't have the resources that most people had. You know, pretty big kid, an aggressive kid. He could be aggressive, you know. So I think he just was like tired, you know, but he was a nice kid, man. He was, if you were to get him by himself, man, just the sweetest kid, man. You know, I could talk like this with him. You know, wasn't an aggressive bone in his body, but he started to become real aggressive. Then he started to get high, and you know, he just started to become the monster that people probably expected him to become. You know, but he wasn't no monster. He wasn't no animal. But based on his physical attributes, based on his lack of access to, you know, fresh and clean clothes and things of that nature. And you got to remember, he was already a big kid, and he had extreme features. You know, very black. You know, he was brown skinned, but he had like the features that somebody might associate with a thug. You know, we gotta be careful of that. You know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So in terms of Baltimore eats its young, what I mean is that, you know, some children, they can't help what they are. You know, you got a kid that look a certain way. A lot of times people dismiss them as, that motherfucker ain't gonna be shit. Look at that nigga over there. You know, as opposed to really sitting down and saying, you know, man, this kid just like every other kid. But because he got the outward expression of what folks
our bias, like
what folks kind of
like stereotype
as somebody that ain't shit. He got to settle for that. Not that he wants to, or she wants to, but I would say like you got a female that may have got molested her whole life, you know, and she gonna take on the, you know, she gonna have some type of scars. She's gonna have some of those attributes, even if that's not what she wants. If that's something that's happening to her, she's going to act out. But that don't mean that that's what she is. Or you got a guy that's big guy, you know, in a situation that is less than desirable, big and he's strong, he gonna fight. If he got the wherewithal to fight, even if that's not in him, he's still gonna fight. He might even kill, he might even murder, he might even do all kind of things because he has the stature that society says avails him or her to those things that are stereotypically set in place.
Yeah.
So if I'm a big motherfucker and I ain't playing football, or if I'm saying I'm a big, just a big greasy ass nigga, and I ain't playing sports or whatever, what else is there for me to do but go out on the street and try to find my way, manhandle throughout, like motherfuckers out on the corner, they ain't little guys, or they not you very seldomly see, guys like yourself, in those situations, because society says maybe you have a different road. But say a guy who got a look that history has depicted as a thug, he might not even know what a thug is.
Yeah.
But trust me, by the time he 15 years old, he gonna know what a thug is, because people gonna be like, you look like this, or you this, and they gonna automatically respond or react to him in a way that society has stereotypically placed on him.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to him. So that's why I say Baltimore eats his young, because some of these motherfuckers ain't gotta die. Some of them don't even have a chance. Some of them could be thorough than any they could be the best at whatever they aspire to, but because the system says you illiterate, because you don't know how to read, because you ain't never been read to, or you may have not been exposed to books. So just because you haven't been read to, or you haven't been exposed to books and things of that nature in a way that's going to create the muscle memory that you need to be reading and writing at what is an appropriate stage in your life, don't mean you're illiterate. You just ain't been given. It's almost like starting a race. You might be the fastest person on earth, but if they don't let you start until everybody else is halfway around the track, it don't matter how fast you are, you ain't gonna be able to catch up.
I don't know if Jay-Z, like if he made the phrase, but he pretty much was like crabs in a barrel, but crabs didn't nobody tell you that crabs don't even belong in the barrel.
They don't belong in the barrel.
So it's like we in that box.
And almost. Crabs ain't necessarily bad. So when you say they like crabs in a barrel, not only are you demonizing the humans, but you demonizing crabs that ain't got nothing to do with this shit.
That's true.
Crabs are, what's bad about a crab? It's a creature. A snake. Call somebody a snake. You're not only belittling him, but you belittling the snake. Nothing's bad. But this system that we live in has a way of placing stamps and value on certain things, and we get caught up in it. And sometimes folk get caught up in it in a way that they don't even have a chance. What was a 15-year-old doing in jail forever? What is a human being doing in jail forever? A person who's in jail forever, it don't even sound right. Because people aren't made to be in jail. And it's not until some of those people get locked up that they have the opportunity to settle down a little bit. And now they're exploring and sometimes it's a blessing though, because what's for you is for you. So if you become the best you in a prison, or you become the best you, some people become their best when they're in a situation where their lives are getting ready to be taken. Get a person that's sickly. Person gets sick and they don't know how long they're gonna last, but they put everything into this life now to make the world a better place, make themselves as best a person or whatever they can be, and they become a tour de force, and they end up dying. But they, within the small space that they were given, they do more than most people do. And had they not been in that situation, they may not even have been, may not even have done what they've done. So everything's valuable, you know what I mean? All that, but we don't look at it like that. All we look at is the spoils. All we tend to look at is, how am I going to benefit? Where it might not even be set up for you to benefit in the way that you're thinking. It might not be. You might not be satisfied with millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that's what society says, get rich and become financially independent or become a mogul or a tycoon, that might not be for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that seems like the lane that everybody wants to rush down that one road to success, when success is a man-made concept.
Yeah.
If you are living, you're successful.
Mm-hmm.
It just, so that's what I meant by that Baltimore Eats Its Young, where, we don't give folks the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about the education system.
Yeah.
I'm talking about parents. You got this child who you think is a burden on you. The mere fact that you think they're a burden, or you got this student who tends to disrupt and you think they're a burden, you allow them not only to ruin their life, but to ruin everything, and then you ruin them as well, because you allowing it, as opposed to saying, "No, I ain't gonna let this exist.
Yeah.
This ain't a possibility around me. Ain't you're not gonna do that, because I want you to do what you really want to do." And I'm pretty sure destructive behavior is not what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So let's find out where you really want to be in the scheme of the things that are around you that'll make you active. Mm-hmm. We don't want you to sit back and take a back seat and just chill. We want you to be just as active as you are, but want you to be active in the way that you want to be active. Mm-hmm. And I know you don't want to be active. You don't want to be an active killer. Or you don't want to be an active deterrent to life as it exists around us. But you want to be active. But if you only know one way, we got to sit back and review. We got to talk. Mm-hmm. And even if talking means we at each other's throat until we can figure it out. If it, sometimes you got to do that. Yeah. Sometimes it's got to be hard. Sometimes, but people are worth it. But we're so selfish now and so focused on the bottom line that we're quick to say, I ain't got time for that motherfucker. Mm-hmm. I ain't got time. Never before have black folks been as dismissive of one another as we are now, and unforgiving. I don't care if the shit don't work out. You can still benefit off of one another. Mm-hmm. If, say, me and you get into it, that don't mean we got to be at odds for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, right.
But that's how people are now.
Yep.
That motherfucker offended me. That bitch disrespected me. That nigga. So I got to write them off.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, you want to write them off, know, and I'm guilty of it, but when we do shit like that, we make the choice.
Yeah.
You don't have to write anything off if that's not what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to go ahead and be lazy and say, look, I'm writing that person off. Write my mother, my father. I'm writing my friend off because they did me wrong. Go ahead, but you don't have to. That's not the road you have to take.
Right. And
people are always redeemable, I think. Because we see redemption in ourselves. Even the worst person, when they get alone, I'm pretty sure they're like, I ain't have to do that. Mm-hmm. Maybe I was wrong. But why can't you just say that around? Why can't we say that around one another? Mm-hmm. How do we redeem ourselves? How do we restore ourselves? And I think that should be the focus more so than trying to get all these material accesses, all this financial access, all this trying to move to the front of the pack. Mm-hmm. You don't have to move to the front of the pack to still be relevant. Yeah. Who says the person that crosses the line first is the winner? Mm-hmm. That's just what society says, because society's too lazy to get into the mix and say, man, look what that guy's doing over there, though. Mm-hmm. We don't see that person fell and that person took time out of the race to say, look, I'm going to lift this person up and I'm going to help them finish the race. We're going to finish last, but we're going to finish together. Mm-hmm. That could be the winner. You know what I mean? We don't look at the nuances of what's around us enough. We just focus on this commercial, stereotypical, dogmatic way that we've been given to live our lives, and I think it's up to us and everyone to say, man, let me see what's outside of this box.
Yeah.
Or let's see what's out. Let's see how we can make this social media broader. Let's open it up, because I think we need it. You know, it's a way of communication.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way of communication.
It really is.
But it doesn't have to be limited. Like folks limit it. Open that shit up and let that motherfucking shit fly like it's supposed to. I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So I did want to talk to you about the PhD program. Well, one thing I don't even. What's required of a PhD? Like, it's just mostly like research, right? Like, you don't are you going to classes, or is it like, how does that work?
I'm just starting, so there are courses. There are courses that you like. I didn't have the program that I'm in is in English, even though the focus is in film. It's in English, so my degrees were in art. You know, I got art education and fine art. That's what I my
like
background is in. My bachelor's in fine art, and my master's is in art education.
Okay.
So the PhD.
Did you need the art, master's for teaching, or did you?
You don't need it, but you gonna either have to take the credit. So eventually, if somebody wants to teach, I would say get the master's, because you're gonna have to get. You
gotta get some type of
You're gonna have to always take classes. I would say get it.
Yeah.
You know, it ain't gonna hurt you, but you don't need it. But for this program, even though it was in film, it was created. It was in English. It's in the English department, so I had to have certain
credits in
English requirements. So what I did is I just got another master's in creative writing. So I got it. I just got into another program in creative writing, which I could have just taken a certain amount of classes and just carried them over into the PhD. But I ended up liking the program, so I just went ahead and stuck it out, and I waited till I was finished with that second master's to do the PhD.
Yeah.
Because and it's called the MFA in Creative Writing and Publication Arts at UBalt. It's a good program.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it's writing, but it's creative. It's art involved too, and it's just about storytelling. And I enjoyed it so much that I just put the PhD on the backboard burner, because I was originally just going to take a semester or a year and then go into the PhD. But I just liked it so much.
Yeah.
So the PhD, I don't know too much because we haven't started yet.
Right. Yeah.
I know it's 32 credits, and then your dissertation, which can be your film or whatever creative piece that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I believe they probably got comps too. I don't know. Whatever they got, man. I'll figure it out. You know, but I think it's unique in that it is a PhD program, but you get to do your some creative stuff. Most PhD programs are pretty rigid. Yeah. I guess. But I ain't never been in one, so I don't know.
Seem like it though.
But this one don't seem like that.
Yeah.
It seems like you can design it the way you want. Now, again, you're gonna have to take all them classes. You still got to take the classes, but I think it's just I'm just gonna take them. I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna take them early. Like a lot of people take the requirements and they mix the requirements up with the fun stuff, the electives. I'm gonna go ahead and knock my requirements out. Then go ahead and take my electives, and my project. I'm doing that now. So I'm doing my dissertation now. Yeah. So when it's time, to really do it, like I'm done, and I'm just editing it. So that's how I'm doing. That's how I approach it.